3 more times. Beautiful. And what's your name?
Angelina. I went to Vejlefjordskolen in Denmark. Growing up, I would always read stories about missionaries, and it was something I used to cry about to my mom. I was like, I really want to be a missionary. And she told me, when you're older, you'll be able to. And as I got into high school, I told my parents, one day I'm going to be a missionary. So you get used to the idea of me going away. And then I started whenever I was in college. I began to look at different mission opportunities. I spent a year planning where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I think watching those missionary videos in church they do for the Mission Spotlight, I saw those all the time and I loved them. And I never thought of doing missions in Europe. Every time I saw something on there, it was more of a tropical place or a very rural location, very far away. And so it was a little bit different for me to choose Europe. I surprised myself. So the year I spent researching, I looked at the call board and I was going through all the calls. I knew I did not want to be a teacher, and I did know that I wanted to be an assistant dean. So I continued to look, and there were a few that interested me. I saw a position in Egypt, I saw one or two in South America, and I also saw the one in Denmark. And I was like, wow, that's so cool, but not for me. And then my mom said, I think you should look at that one again. And I was like, why would I do that? And as the year went on, I realized how perfectly this location fit with my calling. I'm very passionate about local missions. Even though this wasn't a local place, the idea of understanding how privileged people see Jesus and understanding how progressive people see Jesus was something really important to me. And I'm a social work major, and so Denmark is kind of ideal conditions for a lot of different social stuff. So I was wondering what I could learn from the culture there, as well as the people and their mindset, and how I could apply it to my life here. So the application process was pretty simple. I went into an interview with the missions department at Southern, talked to them about what I wanted. They asked me basic questions you would assume they'd ask in an interview. And then I was qualified to submit my application through the website, Adventist Volunteers. And so I did. I had to list my references. That was fun. And my qualifications, and I had to answer a couple of more religious questions, and I did that, and I was phoned in for a Zoom call interview and with my then boss, well, future boss I should say at that time, and she liked me and she gave me the position. So I think the month leading up to my mission, I was starting to realize how real it was. I always knew that this was going to happen, so in a way that reality set in early on, but the second reality of really going and getting on that plane was probably about 2 weeks before I left. It was very nerve-wracking. I was going through a lot during that time of my life, and leaving for my mission on top of it was a lot to take in. Well, those first few hours when I was on the plane, I was already experiencing a lot of anxiety just from personal stuff I was going through. I also had never traveled in an airport by myself, and I was flying internationally, and this is something that made me extremely nervous. Probably, I was more nervous than arriving at my location. I was more nervous about traveling than arriving. So I went through it, and I survived. The first few days once I got there were very exciting. The students didn't arrive for another week. So when we were there, everyone was super hospitable. we got settled in, and I can't remember if I showered or slept. And after that, for a couple days, different people in the area invited us over to their homes, people from the church, and also teachers. And we ate so much food. I remember it was a Wednesday. I can't remember what day I got there. It was a Monday or a Tuesday. And Wednesday, we went over to like 3 or 4 people's houses, and we were just fed so much food. They have like Danish pancakes, which is, they call them panakea. I'm butchering that. But so we ate those. I had brownies. I had marshmallow. I had everything. And I was so sick the next day from eating. It was very fun. So some of my basic duties, we had to wake up the kids in the morning. We had to see who was sick. And each day was different, and the way that we did our shifts changed throughout the year. But a typical day was someone would wake up the kids, like I said, check to see who was sick. Then someone would be on call to take kids to the doctor, etc., or run random errands. One of us would be washing dishes during this time. Then we'd set up for lunch. And there were 2 lunches at that time. And so we'd set up for lunch and then help put away lunch. We'd do that once or twice. Then we'd help clean up after all the lunches. We'd sweep the floors. And then in the afternoon, there would be chores. So they call it plicht. So the kids would clean the school, the different buildings. We'd help them with that. Someone else would also be on call during this time. Then there would be dinner, and we would help set up dinner, take down dinner, get the kids to do their chores again. Some people would play afterwards with the kids, different sports, or just be on call to take kids once again driving if they needed to go somewhere. Then we would have an evening snack, and we would put out the snack, clean up the snack with the kids. Then it would be night check, and we put all the kids to bed, make sure that they were in the dorms at a certain time, and make sure they were asleep. Well, not asleep, but in their rooms. And we would go around and check them all off, and then we would go to sleep. One of my biggest struggles was earning the respect of the kids. The way that authority, I guess, works at the school and in this culture, teenagers are a lot closer to the level of the students, which is a good and a bad thing at times. In America, you automatically have authority. You do have to earn respect, but in school systems, it's more like the kids answer to you. At this school specifically, the kids, they did have to answer to you, but the rules weren't super strict, so we had to earn their respect. And that was something I struggled with the girls. Eventually, I did earn their respect. It took some time, but I did. The boys, I never really quite got there. My greatest triumph was learning to stand up for myself, whether it be my boundaries or things I wanted. I have always been a people pleaser, and I have been learning and still am learning how to respect my boundaries. Another thing that I triumphed was exactly like I said earlier, earning the respect of the girls and being their source of comfort, their cheerleader, and sometimes like a mother figure. My spiritual life was something I don't think a lot of missionaries would want to talk about. I struggled immensely with my faith. I was struggling before I left on my mission, and it was interesting because all the months leading up to my mission, I felt super strong in my faith, and it was the month before that everything kind of came crashing down. And whenever I was on my mission, I kind of had to relearn how I saw God and how I interpreted the scripture and the Bible. Being there, the culture is more secular, which is something I actually don't think is a bad thing. I think it's something that can teach you a lot about your faith and about yourself. That being said, I felt kind of alone a lot of the time with my inner turmoil. So while I was there, I tried really hard to read my Bible, but it was something that I realized my whole life I had allowed other people's interpretations of scripture be the way that I interpreted it. And every time I opened my Bible, all I could hear were other people's voices and not God's. And so while I was there, I had to really learn and understand that God communicates with us so many different ways, and how he communicates with me is not the same as how he'll communicate with others. And I learned so much about Jesus through these kids, even though a lot of them weren't religious. I learned how God's love shines through everyone because he created them. Something I would say to someone who doesn't feel like they can be a missionary, what everyone will tell you is that anyone can be a missionary, which is true, but not everyone is called to be a missionary. And I think that whenever you commune with God and you discuss with him and you talk with him, truly see if it's something that he impresses you to do, because you may want to be a missionary in other aspects of your life. And I want to let you know that you don't have to go internationally to serve. You can do it right where you are. And I think local missions are so important, as well as within your community and even within your own family and with yourself. Missions is so much bigger than our world. It goes beyond that. It goes within your hearts and other people's hearts, and it's super spiritual and something that not everyone can define clearly.